Hey, Taniel, how's PV?
Risa, good morning. Everything's great, really great.
So you've been up and about and doing some fun things lately, haven't you?
Yes, it was one of my friend's birthday yesterday, so he wanted to get a group of friends together and get on some ATVs and go into the mountainside. And I hadn't done that in like 16 years.
Oh my
So
God.
I know. I live here and I kind of it's all been work, work, work recently, and I've kind of unfortunately disconnected from some of the fun stuff. So yesterday, there's this ATV company in Cinco de Diciembre. They're a block from the beach. So a group of us, eight of us actually, we met up at 8:30 in the morning and got onto those ATVs and drove through the city, through Puerto Vallarta, Cinco de Diciembre, and we went all the way into the mountainside. We went to neighborhoods of Buenos Aires, and then Paso Ancho, which is on the east side. And then we were at the base of the mountain, and we just kept going and going and going, went all the way to the top. And that was really, really cool. And it's the rainy season, so the mountainside is just so lush and green. The vegetation is incredible, so it's really, really pretty. And we had a tequila tasting at the top of the mountain. And on our way back down, we stopped by this restaurant along the Rio Quale, had lunch, and then we came back. So the whole thing, we started like around, I think we left around 9 o'clock from the ATV place, and then we were back by like 1:30. It was a
Oh,
lot of
how
fun.
fun.
Yeah,
It's
it was
fun to
really
be a
cool.
tourist every once in a while in your own city, right?
It is, and you kind of forget to do that because you just kind of get caught up in your daily routine, whether it's work or something else that you do, going to the beach all the time. But just kind of exploring the city and just kind of reconnecting with nature. That was really cool for me. And when we're funny enough, when we're at the top of the mountain, I looked over, and they have this, like, I don't know how long it is. It's this massive, long walking suspension bridge. So that's something we're planning on doing the next few weeks. So I'll send you some photos of that.
That is awesome. That is
Yeah.
so fun. I know it took me 26 years to actually go to the Statue of Liberty. I was like born and raised in New York, and my cousin came. I was 26 years old, finally went. It's like ridiculous, right? It's so hard to sometimes, like you say, kind of just go and have fun and not get too caught up in your daily grind of whatever it is that you're
Yeah.
doing, and go and fun and be a tourist in your own city, right?
Yeah, no, yes, absolutely. Again, you just kind of get caught up in your daily routine, and for me, it's been basically work. But it's good to kind of pause for a moment and realize why you're here, and enjoy what nature in the city is providing. And being outdoors is one of the biggest reasons why people are here. So you need to be a tourist once in a while. Even for you, Risa, like you did Statue of Liberty, 26 years you waited, uh, and you like that's ridiculous. That's really long. I thought 16 years, getting back on an ATV was bad, but I think you won on that one. But you really need to just disconnect and enjoy the city and explore.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think this is actually a really good segue into what we're going to talk about today. Um, and that we're going to focus on people who live in Mexico. Um, Basically, for those who are newcomers who have just landed there, and what are the top things that you need to be thinking about, and things that you kind of need to do semi immediately once you've kind of landed and somewhat settled, right? It's part of the settling process. It's part of the adjustment process. But see, these are some of the key things that Tanya, you have come up with to advise people on what they should be doing next. Because I think people they pack all their things, they focus so much on getting there. Then once they're there, they're like, oh, yeah, what? What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, once you move in, you're settled in. I think number one on your list, you should explore your local neighborhood and the city. Because we just get so caught up in the now and what we need to do immediately, then we forget like, okay, we're settled in. That part is over with, right? Now what? Go explore the neighborhood and meet some of your neighbors. See what kind of businesses are in the neighborhood. I can't tell you how many times I've come across people that have moved here and they don't even know what's like 3 blocks away from their home. And that's bad. Just kind of go walking around. And, it's so nice to be outdoors in Vallarta. Regardless if it's the dry season or the wet season, when you go out there and just being out in nature and just kind of saying, oh, I know there's like a local little market over there. Oh, I don't know, there's a little pharmacy there or a little clinic there. And that's really important because down the road, if you do need to go for like NyQuil, there's a pharmacy around the corner, which you didn't realize that was there. If you need to go grab some eggs, oh, there's a little market right there, and then again, meet your neighbors and then explore outside of your neighborhood and check out different parts of the city. That's really important as well. So you're not just confined to your hub. There's a lot more to see outside, and it's a great opportunity to do that.
Right. Absolutely. And this is all, of course, assuming that you now have a place to live. Because, of course, that's first and foremost, is finding a place to live. Generally, we recommend people rent before they buy if it's a new town. Some people have been to that town, if it's Vallarta, for a million years, right? And so they're already ready to buy, so that's a different situation. But checking out and making sure you know what's around in your neighborhood is so, so important. And it's so great because, Mexican people are just really so, I hear this repeatedly on how people feel so comfortable, so at ease, and so welcoming by the local Mexicans, which I think is amazing because it's not always that case in a lot of countries. They're not so welcoming. But Mexico is one of those countries. It's just, inherent in their culture, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Risa. The Mexican people here are very warm and inviting and kind. I've traveled. You've traveled over the world more than I have, but I've been to different cities across the world, and the people aren't as social, as forthcoming, or just saying hi, how are you? So they're a bit more frigid, I guess. But it is what it is, right? I still enjoy.
They're frigid. Why are they frigid?
Well, they're just kind of cold. They're just. Now, I'm not going to name the cities, but that was my experience. But regardless, I still enjoyed the city. But the people, the culture, it was different. Really quick, Risa, going back to knowing your neighborhood and the city, just point out like the pharmacies, right? So this is really important. I would say identify and locate and visit some key places where you might frequent or need to go to at some point. Pharmacies is one of them. There are a lot of large pharmacies in Mexico. Farmacias Guadalajara is one of the largest pharmacy chains. And there are smaller pharmacies like Ahorro and Benavides. And there are other mom and pop little pharmacies across the city as well. Then also, find a local hospital and clinics. God forbid, there's an emergency. You have to go for something or just for regular checkups. And also local markets and supermarkets. And in Emiliano Zapata, the romantic zone, I think, Risa, I remember, I took you there years ago to the local fresh produce market where you could find some like really wonderful organic fresh produce and meats. You're supporting the local businesses, which is great. And then the supermarkets. In Vallarta, we have like Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco, Soriana, that's another large supermarket chain. So where you can get some items there that you can't necessarily find in the local fresh produce market. So those are some of the key areas and businesses I would say, make sure you've identified so you know where to go in the event that you need to see a doctor or go to a market.
Well, let me ask you, actually, what is another thing that I think is really important is knowing certain phone numbers, like for emergencies, right? So if you have to call an ambulance or you have to call the police, is that nationwide, or does each city have its own phone number?
Yeah, we do have 911 now. It's we've had it for a number of years. We didn't have that when I first moved here, but now you can just dial 911, right? And then
really? The same number?
Yeah, it's the same number. Yeah, it's the same number. But also, once you've identified the clinic, the hospital in your neighborhood, or whichever hospital you want to go to, program that number in your cell phone. Right, so you just have it right there, so that's really important. And then finding, of course, we talked about doctors and hospitals. Find a doctor. whether it's a general practitioner or specialist that you need, that should be high on your priority is to find a doctor, right? And a lot of hospitals here, a lot of the people that work at the front desk and the doctors, they do speak English. But like in Vallarta, we have a well-known English-speaking healthcare liaison. So some of the big cities of Cancun or Cabo, they may have someone there who, like Pamela Thompson, in Puerto Vallarta, a lot of the native English-speaking people go to her for recommendations for different hospitals and doctors. So if there's someone like that in your city, I recommend that you find out who that person is and then have their contact information.
Right. And then, of course, that's why networking is also so important, right? Getting recommendations of people. Facebook groups come in handy for that sort of thing. But if you do get information off a Facebook group, I think it's also important to do due diligence and
Yes.
and digging a little bit deeper, right?
Yeah.
Like if you have 5 people recommending the same doctor, then I think that that's probably a good sign that that doctor is solid. A lot of people do come down for, whether it's they need a cardiologist or they need, there's so many different specialists as well, right, in Vallarta
Correct.
now.
Yes.
And then I know some people actually then also travel to like Guadalajara or even Mexico City and try to figure out what your medical plan is going to be, I think, right?
Yes, absolutely. And when I moved to Vallarta 20 years ago, there were a couple of clinics and a few hospitals, but the hospital choices now, it's incredible. I mean, they're expanding from like Nueva Vallarta, Punta de Mita, even in the hotel zone, in the romantic zone. We have the Medicist Hospital that's been there since I moved here 20 years ago, and I've been to the Medicist numerous times. My general doctor is there. There's a cardiologist there, emergency care. I mean, they have everything there, and the Farmacia Guadalajara is just 2 blocks away from there. So I would say, locate the hospital where you want to go to, and all these doctors, they speak English, which is great. So don't worry that if you don't speak any Spanish, you'll be able to communicate with the medical team.
Well, let me ask you, because another thing that I think that people need to be really thinking about is insurance, right?
Yes.
Whether that's health insurance or if they brought their car insurance. I don't know in terms of home insurance, life insurance, that sort of thing. What's your recommendation there?
Yeah, that's tying it on all to the medical topic. Inquire about getting health insurance here in Mexico. If you have a plan in Canada and in the States that covers Mexico or other, if they're like an international insurance, they have an international insurance policy, then great. If they don't, consider getting health insurance, private health insurance here in Mexico. And there are a lot of big insurance companies here. There's AXA and Bursa, Aetna, Zurich, MetLife Mexico, Alliance, and many, many more. If you're a Mexican national or a temporary or permanent resident, you can become part of the Mexico's healthcare system called IMSS, which is the Mexican Social Security Institute, and they provide health care for payroll employees or other nationals who opt in, voluntarily enroll in the system, and also for temporary permanent residents, they can enroll in the system as well. So that's provided by the government, but in order for you as a temporary or permanent resident to get the service, you have to make sure you get your CURP number, C-U-R-P, it's an acronym. It's for the unique population registration code in Mexico. In the United States, we have our social security number. In Canada, they have their social insurance number. In Mexico, they have different numbers for different purposes. Like there's the RFC, which is their tax ID number, and that's different from your CURP number. So make sure you get your CURP number, because when you go to IMSS, you're going to need that number to register you.
Oh, wow. So do you need what else would you need your CURP number for?
Well, when you're a temporary or permanent resident and you're buying or selling property, you're going to give your RFC number, your CURP number, and other like benefits you might be getting that are government sponsored. They're going to require your CURP number.
Very interesting. Wow. So and how do you actually even apply for that? Is that something that you just do online?
Yeah, it's really easy. So when you get when you get your temporary or permanent residence, they automatically issue a corp number. But you get that number. What you have to do is with that number, you have to go to the website and download the constancia. It's like the certificate, you could say, for the corp. It's really, really easy. You know, if anybody's interested, they can just email me and I'll send them the link. And then when you get to that website, you just type in your number and you click, and then you could download the PDF.
Oh, nice. And then
It's super easy.
that's great. That's great. And then you're registered within the system.
Yes, that is correct.
So, what are some of the other things that people should be thinking about, once they've arrived?
Yeah. I would say learn the public transportation system. You know, in Vallarta, we have a lot of buses, and unlike like Los Angeles, where that particular bus might show up every 45 minutes or an hour or an hour and a half, the buses here are pretty frequent, and sometimes it's every 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So, and there are a lot of different buses, different routes. I would say learn the public bus routes. There are a lot of taxis, and there are a lot of taxi stations in all the different neighborhoods. So I would say learn those as well. And of course, you could always, take Uber
Right.
or walk.
But not
learning
all
the
cities
public
have
transportation
Uber.
system is important. No, no. When I was in Oaxaca City a few years ago to film House Centers International, Uber was not that great over there, and no one said just take the regular taxi. So that's what I did. And yeah, they're just some cities. It's not the same.
So, so if you have a car, how do you even know like where to park? When I was in Playa, for example, there were like white lines, and then there were yellow lines, and there were certain lines where you could park for 10 minutes, and then you couldn't park here. You get a ticket right away, and I'm like, what? So
Don't stress.
I'm like, there's no way I can own a car in Mexico
Yeah.
and know how to park it.
Well, no, it's not that bad. Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I've driven in Guadalajara, and I don't feel comfortable driving in Guadalajara. It's kind of like Europe. They have the roundabouts called glorietas, and to be honest with you, I don't know the rules of engagement in those roundabouts. It kind of freaks me out. I'm not used to it coming from Los Angeles. And Mexico City has that as well. In Vallarta, we don't have the roundabouts, so it's similar to like the States. The streets are just kind of like one way or the other. However, driving, I mean, every city is different. There are a lot of streets that are one way, and there are no signs indicating they are one way, and you're really not going to know unless you're living there and driving and you make a mistake, or someone just kind of shows you. So don't always rely on there being a sign where to drive. But in terms of parking, yeah, in Vallarta we do have some public parking garages, and in terms of the streets, like in the romantic zone, it's become really congested over the years, and some businesses have paid the city to reserve the spot in front of their business. So there's a yellow line and a sign posted that certain license plate vehicles can park. Their license plate is actually on the sign, so they're authorized to park there. Obviously, red means do not park. If it's white or there's nothing painted on the curb, then you can park there. But some areas of the city, it's a lot easier to find parking on the street than in the hubs like the romantic zone, or even sometimes parts of Versailles, around the restaurants. It can be a bit tricky during peak hours.
And Vallarta also has a tricky driving rule where if, on the main street anyway, if you are going to make a left turn on this major road, you have to go all the way in the right lane to make the left.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, so I mean, again, you're only going to learn, once you live there and you wind up driving. I mean, when I drove down like an old family car in 2006 because I needed it for real estate, and so that was the first time I started driving in PV, and I just basically learned the hard way of like, oh darn it, I was supposed to make a far right there to make a left turn. But then there are other streets where you do go in the left lane to make a left turn, or you go like maybe one lane to your right and not all the way. So it's all over the map. You're really only going to know once you live in that city and start driving and figuring it out through trial and error sometimes.
Right. So it's all about learning the rules of engagement because I think the other thing is that each town and city is going to have its own rules. So
That's
that's
correct.
the other thing.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
feel like that's the same anywhere, to be honest. I feel like you have
Yes.
your local rules and then, kind of your more national rules,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
And there are a lot of speed bumps.
Oh my God. Other thing. Yes. And
There are a lot of speed bumps, and they're not always painted, so you have to be careful. Again, trial and error. Basically, when you hit your head on the roof of your car, you miss that speed bump. So you got to really be careful because they're everywhere. And sometimes, it's hard to see because either there's a shadow being cast by the tree, or it's not painted, or something else. So just be really cautious when you're driving.
yeah, so basically
Fun.
maybe not own a car right away until or
Well,
don't drive it around until you figured it out.
yeah. I mean, I didn't need a car for the first 3 years, but once I went into real estate, I needed a car, obviously. Another thing we said that's really important, when you move to Mexico and you have your residency, you need to register your address with Mexico's Migration Institute. It's called INM, so that's the immigration office. You need to register as a foreigner. You need to register as where you're staying in Mexico. And then if you were to change addresses, let's say you're renting an apartment or you sold your condo and you're going to move somewhere else in Mexico, you need to go to your local INM office and then notify them of that change of address. And you have 90 days to do it. It's obligatory. And it's really easy to do. You just have to sign a letter declaring your new address, provide proof of the new address, like a utility bill, and the utility bill can't be more than 3 months old. So maybe like a Telmex, which is a landline, or CFE, that's the electric bill. You can request that form online, so you go online and download that form. So once you make that appointment, go with the form, so fill out form, the signed letter, utility bill, and your passport and your residency card, and then you could just make that address change. And it's free. There's no fee for making that change.
I guess
But
that's
it is
like
obligatory, so don't forget.
that's like registering your address with the DMV, with the Department of Motor Vehicles in the U.S., right? If you change addresses, you have to let them know. Actually, which is interesting because I did interview actually your clients, Twyman and Jesse, and they were talking about how they closed on their apartment and they didn't move right away, but they wish they had actually applied for some utilities, like turning on their electricity and so forth, so that when they got here, they could do that sort of thing and have their utility bills. That they didn't realize how important that having a utility bill is to be able to process a lot of the other things. Would you agree?
Well, sometimes the utility bill doesn't have to be in your name. For example, if you just moved into your new home, you purchase it, or you're renting. If you're renting, it's going to be the likelihood is it's going to be in the name of the landlord. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in your name for certain reasons. Like opening a bank account. Some banks, I mean, if you're renting, you're a resident, and the utility bill doesn't have to be in your name because you're renting. You don't own the place. So the name could be in like the landlord's name, but as long as it's not 3 months old. And some companies might require the utility bill to be less than 2 months old, or a month, no more than a month old. So you really need to check with that particular business or utility company to see what they require.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which leads me to kind of applying or opening up accounts for your various utilities, right? Whether it's, what are the main ones? Is it water, electric, gas, and then cell phone?
Okay, good question. Well, cell phone is cell phone, so you just go to like Telcel or AT&T or some of the others, the smaller ones. You can get your cell phone. Telmex is your landline, and CFE is an electric bill. So those two, Telmex and CFE, they're the most important utility bills in terms of, like, we can talk about real estate. It's for capital gains tax exemption. You need those. But CFE, obviously you need electricity in your home. So you want to, if you just bought your place, make sure you transfer it from the previous owner's name to yours. And then what we do for our real estate transactions, we do have utility transfer letters that the sellers will sign and the buyer has to sign. And then your property manager where you can go to like Telmex and CFE and make the transfer over to your name. SeaPal provides the city water here in Puerto Vallarta. So in condo buildings, there's only like one, SeaPal has one account that goes to the condo building, and then usually the building, for all the buildings they do different, but for the newer buildings they'll have like smaller meters for all the units, and then your administrator will tell you your consumption for that month, and then you'll pay your usage fee for that. Some condo buildings will include the water in their monthly HOA dues, right? Some don't. And then what else is there?
So who gets?
I'm sorry, really quick. The SeaPal, the water bill, will be in your name if it's a house. So if you own a house, then the water bill will be in your name. If you're in a condo building, the water bill will be in the name of the condo association.
My question is, do people actually have landlines still in Mexico? I don't know anybody who has a landline anymore, unless it's like a business, right?
Yeah, some people don't. Some do. Like internet, high-speed internet. You can get through Telmex. You could also get the high-speed internet through cable companies, like Total Play is one of them. So in my office, we have internet through Telmex and we have internet through Total Play. In the event one goes down, we have the other one as backup. I have the same thing in my condo. I have both in the event that one goes down.
You literally have
And
two.
it's not.
You have two internet accounts?
Yes.
Wow, you're obsessed with the internet.
I'm with emails and online and video and everything else all the time. So yeah, and it's like in the event. So and it's happened a few times when we had a big major storm, and then one of the internet went down, so I wound up using the other one.
Interesting that both of them wouldn't be down, which is that's nice. So I know one of the things which I did not realize, though, is that once you move to Mexico, or even if you're vacationing there for a decent amount of time, that you should actually contact your consulate and let them know that you're there.
Yes. Yeah. I recommend you do that. So in Banderas Bay, we do have a U.S. consulate and the Canadian consulate. I believe the Canadian consulate is located in Plaza Peninsula in the hotel zone, and the U.S. consulate is located in Paradise Plaza in Nueva Vallarta, which is technically the state of Nayarit. And it's important to let them know you're living here for a number of reasons, right? They can provide emergency assistance. So in case there's a natural disaster, there's a personal emergency, or some type of political unrest, they know how to get a hold of you. They can provide legal support. So if you encounter any legal issues, or even just renewing your passport or your visas. I've renewed my passport twice with the U.S. consulate, and the first time was during COVID, so that whole process was really, really slow. But I'm sorry, that was the second time when I renewed the process was slow. But the first time it was like zip. I went there, gave them my passport, photos, signed, and then within I think 3 weeks, they shipped my new passport. Voting. So if you're going to be voting from abroad, they could help you with providing the documents and making the arrangements so you can vote. And then crisis management, So in case there's something else that's going on, they need to get a hold of you. It's really important. A friend of mine, who passed away recently made me her emergency contact. So that's another thing I recommend. Especially if you're single living here, you want to make sure you have emergency contact. God forbid something were to happen to you, who do you want the hospital or the authorities to contact and just be there for you. So that's really, really important to have that emergency contact.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, because when stuff happens, it's like you can't be thinking about that kind of stuff, right? Like, who is your emergency contact?
And when my friend was in the hospital, she passed away. I was there, and I was like the middle person. I was there. The hospital was just communicating with me because I was her emergency contact. And I'm so thankful. I had Pamela Thompson. She was great. So I'm communicating with her. We're trying to get a hold of, her family.
So she's a healthcare consultant liaison. Yeah.
Yes, Pamela Thompson, yeah, and she was wonderful, and she knows like all the hospitals, all the doctors in town. So it was really, again, that's the point. So if there's a healthcare English-speaking liaison that you need who can just communicate with all these other moving parts, it's really really helpful. And so I'm thankful that she was there, and we did what we had to do.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Um, so another important issue, of course, when you're moving is money and where to put your money, what to do with your money, how to access your money, because more than likely you will have a bank account in your, home country that you'll need to access. What's the deal with opening up a Mexican bank account?
Yeah, it's really easy. It's nothing complicated, and at least in Vallarta, there a lot of the branches have English-speaking people. So again, if you don't speak any Spanish, you'll be in good hands. Like Banorte on Olas Alta Street in Romantic Zone, there are a couple of people there who speak English. Intercam, also in Romantic Zone, have English-speaking people, and at their other branches as well. BBVA, Bancomer, they have English-speaking people. And some of the banks, their online presence, their online banking is better than others. Like Banorte and BBVA, I like their online banking. It's really easy. And then you can program your utility bills there, right? Your Telmex, your CFE bill, if you've got a Telcel, a cellular service. If you have a business here and you're doing payroll, so you could add those people over there as well. So it's really easy. It wasn't the case like 20 years ago, but it's changed significantly. And some of the banks do have an English version of that website. So I know Banorte has it for businesses. I haven't checked for personal accounts, but again, if you can't navigate the website, they do have a toll-free number that you can call, and nowadays they do have English-speaking people who can guide you to what you need to do online. So it makes it really easy. Otherwise, if you don't have some online banking to pay your bills, you have to sometimes physically go to that business to pay the bill, like the utility company, or you go to an OXXO. An OXXO is kind of like a 7-Eleven or Circle K, as we know it in the States, and you could pay the utility bill there. Now, I've had problems a couple of times with OXXO where I've paid the bill, and for some reason it did not register with the utility company. So that happened to me, I think, like 3 times.
Wow.
So after that, I don't know, and they couldn't find the money.
You're kidding.
Oops.
Well, hopefully the bill
Yeah.
wasn't that high.
No, it was like, $20-$30 or something like that. So I just
But
let it go.
that's so
But
frustrating.
it is frustrating, yes,
So
yes.
now what do you do?
And if I was, no, so you find alternate ways to pay the bill. So you either go to the company or you can just set up the online banking and pay that way.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, paying online is always great, but yeah, doing these, and I've not had a problem, I don't think. I don't know. One never knows. But yeah, I think that listening to other friends, getting anecdotes about what the best way is generally always the best, right? Is trying to, get your tribe together, get your community together of trusted, like-minded people. And I think that that's, if you're an introvert, it's probably going to be harder. But I think especially in the beginning of days when you've landed in a place, it's really important to find your community, your people, but also expand that and go into your discomfort zone, right? Meet locals, right? I mean, how has that been for you? Like, what do you recommend for people to do in terms of trying to find people and community and
Right.
connections with others?
Yeah. Like you said, meet the locals. I mean, this is probably one of the reasons why you moved to Mexico, because you love the people, you love the culture, and you love just the environment, the beach, the mountains, or your Mexican big metropolitan city. And you can't be a hermit forever. At least I hope not. But
Some
meet the
people
local
can.
people, and some people can, yes, and then the voices start coming out. Um, but I think some of us can relate. But meet the local people, and it's wonderful. I mean, you can get to meet their culture. You build that social support, and you have a more authentic experience. You know, you learn about their celebrations and family events you're invited to. I mean, one of my first Christmases with a Mexican family, I mean, it was something totally different. I mean, it just goes on until like, you know, 3, 4 in the morning, believe it or not. So at 2 a.m., I was ready to call it a night.
They're like, one more,
But
uno más, uno más.
yeah, they were like the Energizer Bunny. They could keep going and going, and for different reasons. You know, it was a cultural thing. It was wonderful, you know. And then and they're going to show you some hidden gems and places you're not going to know as a foreigner who just moved there. And special gems could be that like little restaurant by the river that's about 1.5 miles up from where you're living, or some cute little village or town that's just, you know, like 45 minutes away. I mean, you'll just kind of get all these tips of different activities and places to visit. And then overall, it'll just enrich your life and for this new Mexican experience, because after all, that's the reason you moved here. You know, you just want to experience a different culture and just kind of expand, you know, your life experience. And yeah, it's you can't do it alone, you know, and you don't have to do it alone. And there are people here, especially the locals, that love their culture and would love to share that with you and invite you and make you part of the community.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's so true. Like, our friend Ernesto, who is from Vallarta, and he took us to that little hole in the wall. Well, it's not even a
Los
hole in the wall. It was actually
Abuelitos.
really big. You know, it was a
Yeah.
family's backyard, and it was only open on the weekends, and the food was
Yes.
amazing. And like, you'd never see that in any book. You're not going to see it anywhere just because it's like
No.
a family establishment for locals, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's off the beaten path. Yeah. Yeah. And, as a foreigner who just moved here or just a tourist, you're never going to find that place or know about it. So when you become friends with locals, I mean, families have been here for generations. They know of all these little wonderful little restaurants and excursions and villages and towns to go to, and it's wonderful and it's eye-opening and it's just so cool, and it really enriches your life on a whole new level.
So true. So true. I know we're going to have to wrap this up, but I popped in my head, in terms of having to furnish an apartment, a condo, a house, or, you know, getting appliances, because that's the other thing is that not every rental, actually, it's very common for it not to have a refrigerator or not to have a stove or something. Isn't that right?
Yes, I mean, some places they could be rented like absolutely like just empty, no appliances, no furniture. Some places, you know, will have a few appliances. So, I mean, if you do need to buy appliances or furniture, like 20 years ago, it was a lot harder. But now we have wonderful appliance stores. We even have a Home Depot. Liverpool is kind of like a Macy's, and they have appliances there and prefabricated furniture. You could even buy online if you wanted to and have everything shipped. Or when you're down here, there are a lot of interior design stores where they can make custom-built furniture specifically for your unit, right? They'll take all the measurements, so it's basically just built for that space. And they're just beautiful, you know, they're just beautiful, beautiful pieces. So we have all of that, but that's something to think about when you're going to be renting or you're purchasing a place and you need to furnish it, or you're just going to swap out, you know, some of the old furniture for new. It'd be good to get a little head start. If you're going to have anything custom made, you know, consider waiting a few months. It might be 6 months or, I'm sorry, not 6 months, but maybe like 6 weeks or 8 weeks. It really depends. Some of the interior designers here are super busy, so it might take a little bit longer for them. But I would start planning that out. If hopefully you're working with a real estate agent or a rental agent, you can ask them for some referrals. Or like you said, you know, you can go on Facebook and ask some people and do your due diligence and check them out and to see if they're a right fit for you.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. So finally, as we wrap this up, are there any kind of sign, you know, you've been in PV for many, many years now, right? So you're not a newbie at all.
Look at the grays.
Um, I'm just wondering, like, is there any kind of final thoughts of, you know, there's a lot of anxiety, I think, you know, moving to a new country, moving to a place that you're not totally familiar with and trying to create a soft landing. And that's what we're hoping to do here, right, is to help with that soft landing so that things, the adjustment period isn't so crazy. Is there any kind of like mindset things that they should be thinking about? Any other pieces of advice?
Yeah, what I would say is something you consider doing is making a checklist of what's really important to you, from your healthcare needs to furniture, insurance, and make a list of the things that you want to set up or get to know who's who or where to go for this and for that. And see if you could locate those places and just kind of have a directory of those. And if you don't, start asking people, start asking your agent, your rental or agent, or your real estate sales agent. You can ask on social media. Just kind of start that process. And above and beyond, more than anything else, enjoy the process. Don't stress out. Your questions will be answered. And if there's something that's not available here, we can try to find something that's comparable, right? Because some medicine might not be available here, but speaking with a healthcare professional in advance before you show up here saying, hey, you know what, this medicine is not available in Mexico, okay, what's comparable? And then get the name of that medicine and then check with your primary healthcare provider in the States or Canada to see if that's okay. Get all these things all lined up and figured out. You can do it. The list might look long. Don't get overwhelmed. I think most of those will be answered. I think we've answered some of those questions over here, right? But I would say, to make this transition as smooth as possible, try to get all your ducks lined up sooner than later.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Taniel, as always, thank you so much. Always good to see your face.
Pleasure. With the grays.
With the silver fox going on there. Vibe.
Silver fox. That's going to be under my business card.
All right, so we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, Taniel.
Thanks, Risa. Have a good one.
You too.